Welcome to A State of Mind. I am so happy to be bringing you a new episode of this podcast because I know the power of conversations to change lives. You can learn more about each episode in the show notes below, and you can support our podcast by checking out our sponsors with the links below. It would also help us out a lot if you left us a review or gave us a comment or just shared about this with your friends and family. So I'm here today with Patti Downing. Patti, thanks for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, this is a special episode. So we met at a Joe Dispenza meditation retreat.
That's correct.
And a week-long retreat, really intense. Really glad I did that. Really powerful meditations and a big focus on healing and physically healing our body. And how, Joe Dispenza is sharing these techniques and meditations that can help people to potentially heal themselves. And then we met on a break towards the end, and you shared your incredible story with us, and we'll get into that. But you are an example of someone who has had success in healing cancer tumors out of your body using meditation and using these techniques. So I'm really excited to have you on and hear about that.
Thank you.
Do you want to just share with us a little bit about who you are, your background? I know you're there in Portland. Your history with meditation, anything like that you want to share with us?
Sure, that's a good place to start. So I started in this work 3 decades ago. I have been very interested in, stretching my abilities in whatever manner I could. As I explained to some people before, I think that my early training was really about learning how to become a mystic. And at the time when I first started with this work, it wasn't with the goal of learning how to heal the body necessarily, but more about learning about the brain and learning about quantum physics, practicing several disciplines that helped to hone in my gifts. I came from a long lineage of women who had vision and things like this, so it was a very natural thing for me. But in that time, starting 3 decades ago, was when I first met Dr. Joe. And I spent about 4.5 years of extensive study where I was meditating every day and up at 4 o'clock in the morning, every morning. We did that in Denver just one day, but I did that for years. Alarm went off at 4 a.m. We'd get up, we would do our meditation, we would do some focus work, and then we'd go back to sleep for about an hour, and then we'd get up and start our day, which was
interesting.
Pretty sweet way for us to start. But
was Joe Dispenza encouraging that 4 a.m. meditation back then?
Definitely.
Do you want to share why 4 a.m.?
Well, 4 a.m. is whenever our body is most susceptible to change. So as far as how, the brain works and, how you can drop into theta at specific points during your sleep cycle. And whenever you get to that timeline at 4 a.m., that's whenever your body is more willing to download and allow whatever information or whatever change it is that you are looking for. Now, today I don't get up at 4 o'clock, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing it at the retreats, but I meditate whenever it works out for me, but I don't set the alarm like I used to. But I did that for about 4.5 years with, a group that Dr. Joe was involved with. And then my life got kind of complicated, got a little bit busy. I had 2 young children, and they actually went to the studies with me during that time. So
amazing.
My children know quite a bit about this walk as well. But, I started finding myself not meditating every day. It was 7 days a week for 4.5, 5 years, I guess. And then it kind of turned to maybe 6 days a week and then 5 days a week. And, I just found that life was starting to overtake and I wasn't being as focused as I had been.
Yeah, I feel like that's a part of your story that I imagine a lot of people listening can relate to. You get inspired with meditation or yoga or breathwork or whatever it is, and you feel the benefits and you're doing it, and then over time there's that tendency to start to do it less and less. And It can be natural. It can be, everyone has their own path, but it seems like for you, I mean, having children obviously is a huge thing, so
Well,
makes
it is,
sense.
and I never stopped my practice. So
Okay.
I think that's the thing that's hard for people to understand sometimes. I never stopped meditating. I never stopped doing the work. I love breath work. Oh my gosh, I've been doing that for 30 years, and I've done probably 4 or 5 different forms of breath work in my years of study. Uh, but what I wasn't doing was I wasn't doing it every day. And I wasn't doing it with the specific focus of what it was that I was set out to conquer, or whatever word it is that you want to use. Um, and I just fell into that habit of doing it at my convenience, and it just kind of lost its verve from that. So
Mhm.
again, could I tame myself, or find myself in a calmer manner after doing meditations? Absolutely. But I wasn't doing them every day like I had been. And I realized once I got this diagnosis that that was the key. I could not just do it occasionally. And when I say occasionally, I'm saying 2 or 3 times a week, was
Yeah.
probably my pattern for the bulk of my life. But 2 or 3 times a week is not going to do it whenever you're facing stage 4 cancer. So
Right.
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask if you want to share with us, looking back at 30 years, 30 plus years of inner work, spiritual work, meditative practice. I mean, I imagine even, sure, it's great to do it every day, but you kept it alive, once, twice a week. There's still value in that. I mean, do you see the value in that looking back on it?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I owned a retreat center with my best friend for many years, and we hosted a lot of breathwork courses and retreats, and weekend events for people to come and experience the things that we had worked with. In fact, you might have met my friend, because she started with us with Dr. Joe 30 years ago too, and
Oh, wow.
she came with us to Denver.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I
Yeah,
didn't realize that Joe Dispenza had been teaching for 30 years. Anything you want to share in terms of what's changed or evolved? And is he still kind of the same person, or is there a big difference there?
he's the same guy. He really is. He's the same guy. He was with a team of people at that time. So there were, several that taught at different times during the day. And those retreats, could be 3 days, they could be 5 days, they could be 7 days. I mean, they even had some that were 30 days, um, but he was one person within a team. And
Mm.
after a point, we made the decision to walk away from that group, and kind of went off, like I said, mainly because we were busy raising our children. But it wasn't too terribly long after that that Dr. Joe went independent. And I think he got connected with Hay House. He had already written a book at that point, I think, back in the day. And also, he was involved in What the Bleep, the movie What the Bleep.
Oh, yeah.
So, I was at that opening night because it opened in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
Well, that was quite an influential movie. I remember seeing it when I think I was an undergrad in college, and
it
like, wow, that's interesting.
it
And
was a
yeah,
life changer. I mean, and the crazy thing is they tried so hard to get somebody to show the movie, and nobody wanted to do it. So they made a deal with Hollywood Theater here, which is an old funky theater in Portland, and they said, just give us 1 week. Let us just try 1 week and see what happens. And it went on for months and months and months. It sold out every single day for months and
wow.
months and months. And so that 1 week turned into a very, very long time. And it was kind of the beginning of that movement of more people beginning to understand the power of quantum mechanics. And that was kind of the launch pad for it, I think. And that helped them get the word out to a larger population.
Hmm.
But that was pretty much the foundation of what it was that we started with him.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a cool story to
Mhm.
share. I remember that movie, and I remember being in college and people kind of debating it, and so I think that had such a big cultural impact. It's just interesting to reflect on it. Yeah, woke people up to the power of meditation and quantum mechanics and consciousness, and also had a shadow side or a backlash of people, kind of making fun of it, or ways that maybe went some of that stuff kind of went too far and like, oh, I'm going to manifest a Ferrari in my garage by thinking about it.
That's
And
okay.
so I kind of had this back. Yeah.
I mean, I just say that everybody figures things out at some point or another in their life, and no judgment on when it is that they determine that, oh, that does make sense.
Mm,
But whenever you witness things over and over again, which we did regularly in the early days, and from that point on, you realize that it is not what you would consider a woo-woo education by any stretch of the imagination, because it has always been science-based. And when you understand the science behind it, like what experienced when you were in Denver, then it makes more sense as to why it is that people can go in and do the things that they do.
mm,
So I find that, you know, just being able to accept the possibilities of what the human mind can do for the body
yeah.
is something that's going to become very commonplace. And
Mm,
I'm quite excited to see that come about. I've
yeah.
been waiting a long time.
Yeah, it's going to be such a huge cultural shift and change. And I think your story that you're going to share today will open people's eyes to the reality of it. Other stories that I've heard, I'm late to the party with Joe Dispenza. That was my first retreat with him, and partly because of that reputation of it being too woo woo or too
Yeah.
out there or too fantastical. And I was, over here being the serious Buddhist meditator guy.
Hmm.
Um, but coming to it in my life now, it's like there's so much overlap. Of course, it is science based. There's so much connection with the real Buddhist teachings, which do teach that our mind is manifesting,
Yeah.
and we have karma, and it's that interaction. And I think there's a lot of confusion when the word mind is used in the Buddhist teachings. I think a better word is consciousness.
Yes.
It's not like the part of our mind that's thinking. It's the totality of our conscious experience, which includes our conscious mind, but also includes our subconscious and our unconscious, and includes our body, includes the awareness throughout our whole system, and beyond, really. So yeah, it's amazing. Getting to hear these stories, it is really inspiring. I want to just appreciate the inspiration. I'm getting older now too, and like if something can light me up and inspire me, like let's go with it. And hear stories of people healing through this inner work is extraordinary. And to me, it's something very different than quote unquote manifesting a Ferrari in the garage. To use that example, and
Mhm.
you're talking about healing cancer. Obviously, the cancer is created in your body. Makes sense that the body could also heal that. Right? It makes sense to me.
It does make sense. And manifestations can come in a variety of ways. People can manifest a Ferrari out of their garage, but they might have had to take a certain pathway to get to that.
I might have had to take a loan out.
Well, that could be too, but I have seen some pretty amazing things happen with people. Even
Oh
Laura,
yeah.
the other girl that got up on stage when we were in Denver, when she talked about manifesting her physical necklace out of the ethers, and you know,
Yeah. Do you want to
we
share that story briefly?
yeah, she she lost her necklace in Mexico like 2 years ago, I believe, and I think she might have been there for a retreat. I'm not 100% sure. Her mother lives there, but she lives in Portland, Maine, and she was in the pineal gland meditation, which we can talk about if you'd like at some point. But that is the area where you are really tapping into source. If you can get that connection with the pineal gland up to source, that's when the magic happens. And she had tried to find her lost necklace uh, over and over and over again. Every time she went down to Mexico, she tried to see if she could manifest that necklace out of the ethers because she loved it. It meant the world to her. And so when we did that 4 o'clock meditation in Denver, and she got very playful, and she just made the decision that, my gosh, I'm just, why not just try? And so she just pretended like she just threw her necklace out into the void, and then she let it go. And then when
Hmm.
she went up to her room that night to pack to get ready to leave the following morning, she made the decision to just to check in the drawers to find out if she had left anything, and her necklace was there.
In one of the drawers in the hotel room.
One of the drawers in the hotel room in Denver, Colorado.
So I got to be honest, that's an incredible story, and my skeptical mind definitely came up with that one. I'm like, I don't know if I can. That's
I
amazing. Good for her.
I know,
Mm,
but
yeah.
the thing is, I think that whenever you do this work, as long as you at least as long as I have, that those stories don't really surprise you as much, because I think that there are a lot of things that are capable. Uh, so she really touched me. I mean, people had told me that I touched them a lot during the retreat in Denver, but Laura's story just did something to me. It just like gave me
Mm,
cold chills all over, and I
mhm,
loved it. It was really, I thought, a very special story.
mm. Amazing.
Mhm.
So
But
getting back to your story, you're going through life, you're raising kids, you're staying connected with your meditation practice, but doing it less often. Yeah, where do you want to go with it from there?
well, I feel like at this juncture, I'd like to kind of tell another story that happened about halfway in between. So this might have been about 15 years ago. And we were taught in that early time frame when I was studying, how to use our hands for healing. Like the coherence healing that we were learning in Denver. We were taught that technique, and we used it pretty regularly on various people, participants that came, just like what happened in Denver. And about 15 years ago, a close friend of mine was diagnosed with lymphoma, and it was a very progressed case. And he went through just the worst protocol imaginable. I mean, he had to be sequestered for long periods of time. Um, and once he had finished his treatment, the cancer came back. They put him through another tremendous protocol, just really hard on his body. And we had hopes, and then the cancer came back again.
Oh,
And so the doctors told him at that time that, this is too far gone and you just need to get your life in order. And so another close friend of mine who is very familiar with this work had contacted me, and she said, "We're not going to let him die. So let's call him and let's get him to your house. You know what to do, Patty. Just, let's do it." And so at that time, my youngest daughter was 13, his daughter was 13, and the other woman that was helping me was also had a daughter that was 13. They were all quite close. And so the five of us put him in my living room, and we laid him down on the floor, and he was like at a point where he had nothing to lose. And I think that's what happens a lot of times with people that are faced with these terminal illnesses. They've got nothing to lose. And
mm,
so he just surrendered
hmm.
completely. And this grown man cried so hard that he was convulsing. And we worked on him for about an hour and a half. So I was at his head, my friend was at his feet, and we had the children on his torso.
Mm,
And after about an hour and a half, the kids crawled up to bed and passed out. He went to the backyard. He cried for another hour. And
mm.
long story short, he went back to the doctor the next month and there was no cancer. And that
Wow.
was 15 years ago. And
Wow.
he has never gone down that road again.
That's incredible.
So I didn't tell that story for probably 10 years. And
Mm,
the reason that I was hesitant to do that was because number one, I know that when somebody heals themselves, it is them doing the work. I
mm,
may be providing the energy to help them get where they need to go, but honestly, it is up to the person who is having the work done to allow, to surrender, and to change their own body. So he's still here. 15 years later,
oh,
he's still
wow.
here.
Well, it's
And
a wonderful story, and it's a great message that the healing's coming from within
it, it,
rather than an
it
external healer.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. And I think that that's the reason why people get kind of hung up sometimes, because most people turn their power over elsewhere and they don't know how to give themselves the credit necessary to know that they are powerful enough to do whatever it is that they need to do. So I like to tell that story now. I've started telling it more recently, mainly because it gave me the encouragement that I knew I needed when
Mm.
I found myself faced in the identical situation that my friend was in. Stage 4, incurable, get your affairs in order, sorry.
Ooh.
And so I thought, well, okay, who taught me how to do that? Well, Dr. Joe. So I had been, like I said, continuing to follow him, reading all of his books, doing, I mean, I've never let go of Dr. Joe, never in these 30 years. He's been a constant in my life. He's been a great inspiration. And so when I got that diagnosis, I just knew there was only one answer, and that was I had to get to a 7-day retreat. I had not been to a retreat with Dr. Joe in probably 24 years, maybe. You
Mm.
know, even though
Oh, wow.
even though I
Yeah,
stayed
yeah.
active with him, but person to person, I wasn't with him, and I wasn't doing that kind of work like I had been before. So my husband was in total agreement. He said, absolutely, whatever it takes, I don't care, you know, we'll get you there. And so I made the decision to go. I was diagnosed in June 2025, and I went in
Mm.
August of 2025. So
Okay.
I went to
And
work hard and fast, knowing what
yeah.
could be done, knowing what could be done.
And so June 2025, 1 year ago, is when
Exactly.
you got diagnosed. And what
This,
was the diagnosis? What was that like? Was that stage 4 at that point?
yes. So
Wow.
that was a year ago this week. So um,
And what kind of cancer, if you don't mind sharing?
I had breast cancer,
Okay.
and it had already metastasized to my lymph nodes when they discovered it. Uh, so I did agree to have my breasts removed, and I agreed to have 2 lymph nodes removed, but I refused other treatment. Um, I felt like, well, to begin with, my body's very fragile. I knew I could never do chemotherapy, and so it just wasn't an option for me. And I just was terrified of radiation. So I was like,
Mm.
yeah, I've got to find another avenue. There's got to be another way for me to take care of this body. So that was what I did, was I just devoted myself to uh, the old work that I knew, you know, could be successful. And the minute I made the decision, because I was diagnosed in June, I made the decision in July. I downloaded the progressive workshop, started with the work from scratch again, just like I'd never heard it before, even though I knew it
Hmm.
inside and out. And I started the daily meditations. And I just gave it everything I had. Again,
Mm.
what did I have to lose?
Hmm.
I'd already been told. So it, I, I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, and it had metastasized, like I said, to my lymph nodes, and it metastasized to my lungs, and
Mm.
my entire body was covered in tumors inside my bones.
Oh,
So
geez.
I had a
Mm.
tumor the size of my hip. Pardon me, the size of my fist in my
Mm.
left hip. It was so large that it broke through the bone. And and then I had several of them going down my spine. They were everywhere. But the most substantial ones were the ones at my T2, another one, I think it was at T4, my left hip, my right hip. Anyway, it was just everywhere. Uh,
Oh.
so I knew that, you know, I was going to have to go after it with everything I had, because that was a pretty tall order. So I started in with the daily meditations, and I would do anywhere from an hour to 3 hours a day. That sounds like a lot, but if your life is on the line, it's nothing. And I was in so much pain that I couldn't move around anyway. So, you know, I can lay in bed and meditate all day long and do what it is that I need to do. But in those first 10 weeks of meditation, I could feel all these amazing things happening inside of my body while I was doing the work. And it was blowing me away. I
Mm.
was so emotionally moved every single day, because there were obvious changes, physiological changes that I could feel happening inside of my body. And so it just encouraged me greatly to just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And I was feeling pretty confident that I was going to make a great change. And so I had my next PET scan in September of 2025. So they check me every 3 months. And in that 3 month period of time, I startled my doctors, because there was no cancer in my lymph nodes anymore. There was no
Wow.
cancer in my lungs anymore. And 16 of the tumors had dissolved.
Wow. So it
And
happened really quick. That must have given you quite the inspiration or the positive energy to keep going because
I,
there's progress.
I
Yeah.
was I was so excited and so blown away. And and the four remaining tumors that were left, the major ones, had all dissolved 40 to 60%. So they were still four pretty substantial tumors, but I knew that it was doable. If I could eradicate the rest of that stuff, then I knew that I could eradicate the final part of those
Mm.
tumors. So once I got that diagnosis in September, and I just was giddy. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, as I told my husband, I got the code. Somehow I went to source and I got the code.
Mm.
And so it was nothing but excitement for me to just every day jump right back in there and imagine the remainder of these tumors leaving my body. And the way that I controlled that was during the meditation every single day. And this, I think, is what is most important for most people to hear if they are looking to change is I created a video in my head. And the video was of me walking into the oncologist office and them pulling up my PET scan and there being no tumors there. And I would
Wow.
and I would just be in this exuberant, you know, state of joy, with the oncologist celebrating with me, and us just crying from excitement, and I played that video over and over and over and over again. So if I was in meditation for 1 to 3 hours a day, I don't know, maybe I'd play it once, maybe I'd play it 10 times. It didn't make any difference. But to hardwire it, I would see myself telling this story right here because I felt as though the two needed to be connected. I can visualize this, but if I really want it to be real, then I've got to be able to share it with the world. And so every day for 6 months straight, that's exactly what I disciplined myself to do.
Mm.
So by the time I went for my next PET scan in January, I just had a tremendous amount of confidence and I was super excited. They called me to set my appointment, and turned out that they set it on my birthday, and I'm like, "Oh,
Wow.
that's my birthday." And they said, "Oh no, we're not going to do that to you." I said, "Oh no. Please do that to me. It'll be the best birthday present I've ever gotten." I confused them a lot. They did not know what to think about me. But I went in and I got the PET scan done, and in pure fashion, my husband took me away for the weekend and we left to go celebrate my clear PET scan. And we went to the coast of Oregon. We spent 3 days just enjoying ourselves. And it was like I had already realized it. I
Mm.
created the idea in my head and I just knew that the proof was going to be there. So I went in for the results in January. Um, the oncologist, it was actually the physician's assistant that came that day. And, she told me she was so excited to see. And I know she was excited because of what she saw in September. And she just kept saying, I just keep refreshing my computer. I just can't wait to see what your PET scan looks like. And she literally gasped. I mean, because my PET scan came in, the results came in while I was in the office with her. And
Mhm.
so she popped it up, and so she saw it before I did. And she just was speechless. And she's like, what in the world? And I've told every doctor, every single one. I have a series of doctors that, I mean, it's like a basket of them, and I've made sure that every single one of them know what it is that I'm doing. And they can believe it or not. It doesn't make any difference to me, but I assume that if one person is affected positively, then that's good too. So, but obviously this woman had some faith in me and
Mm.
got extremely excited when she saw the results. And I was just sitting there because I'd already celebrated it hundreds and hundreds of times. And and so she turned around and looked at me, and I'm smiling. I'm smiling like I am right now, and I'm like, well, I know it's good news. And she's like, what in the world happened here? And I said, I'm trying to explain to you. It's my practice of meditation. I am going to source and I am changing my body. And you you can't change your body. And you'll know this if you remember from the lectures from Dr. Joe. It can't be done matter to matter.
Mm.
No, this has to happen in the unknown. And
Hmm.
so in order for you to be able to let go of this physical body and elevate yourself to a place to where you can touch source, ask for the download, ask for the assistance. It doesn't, I mean, whatever you want to call it, it can come to you if you are in the right frame. So the meditations and the stuff that Dr. Joe does with us takes us to that theta state. And the theta state, or higher, gamma, is what allows us to tap into source and bring that reality back to the material world. And that's why Laura's story with the necklace makes sense to me, where it may
Mm.
not make sense to other people. So when I saw the clear PET scan results, I was just beside myself. And I, my friends, my family, you know,
Mm.
everybody was in just profound disbelief because it just didn't seem like it was a viability, but it is a viability. So after being in excruciating pain, I mean, I don't know how long I was in pain. It was really bad. Uh,
Mm.
I've been primarily pain free now since December.
Great.
Um, and it's given me, a new lease on life. I can eat again. I can, I'm just a different person. It's like one of the best ways for me to explain it is it's like walking down the hallway in the Matrix with all of the doors that were lining the walls,
Oh,
and
yeah.
me finding myself standing in front of a door and kind of feeling it out, and nope, not that one, and go to the next one, nope, not that one, and until I felt like the Patty without cancer was behind that door. And those were and you can call them games, I guess, tricks, I don't know. It doesn't make any difference. If it gets you there, it gets you there.
Hmm.
And
Well, it's the practices you're doing.
exactly. And so I would go through that door and I would find Patty without cancer and I would bring her back with me. And I would do that over and over and over and over again. So there were a lot of techniques that I used to help myself get out of this physical body and away from this known sack of meat. So I could go to the place that I needed to go in order to make the changes. And some days it might be that I would get up into the void and float, you know. I'd
Hmm.
If you don't understand that, go watch an astronaut movie. I didn't care if I had the astronaut outfit on me or not, but I knew how to float. I could visualize myself floating, and that meant that there was no body, that it,
Hmm.
it was like there was no gravity holding me down. Um, I would sometimes turn myself into an avatar, and being an avatar allowed me to again not identify with this physical body, uh, and
Right. Yeah.
especially
When you.
especially with me being in pain a lot, as an
Hmm.
avatar, I would go up into the void and I would be doing triple flips. I'd be, flying through the air. I'd be jumping from one invisible box to another, and really it became like a playful approach to finding my way to a deeper place. Kind of like what Laura did, right? I mean, when she went in, it was a playful thing that she did, and
Hmm.
and that is what separated her from her emotions, what separated me from my emotions, and allowed me to let go of the body as I knew it, and to find another way to bring in something new and different and changed.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of your journey here was you were wanting to share that story, and you saw yourself sharing the story, and here you are sharing the story, and I think there's something special about that too. I think because it's not it's not just about you at that point, it's about how it can impact other people.
Well, I told the nurse that did my intake for me when I went to Dr. Joe both times, both Washington, D.C. and Denver, because if you do have stage four, they do have to do an intake to ensure that you are in good enough shape to do the retreat. And, after this first round with her and then meeting her right before I went to Washington, D.C., and I showed her my September PET scan. That was my September PET scan. Oh no, I take that back. My apologies. It was the January PET scan. My apologies.
Hmm.
And we cried through the entire intake. I mean,
Oh.
she was just so touched. And she said, "Oh my God, I can't wait till you get here. I'm going to introduce you to everybody because this is what we live for." And I told her, I said, the great thing about doing this, and Dr. Joe will tell you that people say this all the time, that receiving a diagnosis that is that profound sometimes is a great gift.
Hmm.
And for me, because I did not choose to be a victim of my circumstance, I looked at it very differently. And I just knew that, you know, we as human beings can do these great things to alter who we are. And I wanted it to be my new purpose. I've
Hmm.
I've done a lot of incredible, amazing things in my life. I've had one of the most abundant, fulfilled lives anybody could ever hope for. And this is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And that might be difficult for people to understand, but it's true. And
Hmm.
part of that is because when you show that you can do something miraculous like this, it just takes you out of the realm of normal.
Hmm.
And I'm not, I even battle sometimes because I say this isn't about ego. This is about, showing others that you're capable. You can do this. Everybody can do this. And so if it means that I spend from here until the end of my time talking to people and helping them figure out the pathways, then so be it. To me, that's incredible. I'm retired. Why not?
I love that. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's look at the images here together, and we'll include these in the podcast. So
Okay.
the first image on the far right here is showing the original PET scan from June 2025, right?
That's correct.
And the dark splotches are the tumors, right?
Yes. Let me explain that just a little bit. So, your brain, your heart, your kidneys, and your bladder, if you can see that on the scan, will always show up dark because they're full of fluid. So those dark spaces are natural. Every other dark spot on that image is a tumor.
Wow. Okay.
So you can see that's profound. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm covered. And especially if you look at that one in my left hip. I mean, that thing is
Yeah.
massive, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that one I think that one I dissolved about 60% of it in the first 10 weeks.
Yeah, so then in the middle image from the 10 weeks later, it's there, but it's much lighter.
So much lighter. And
Yeah.
you can see the best way to check on it is to look, at where that tumor was in my left hip. And then also to look at the tumor that was in my T2.
Hmm.
And then I think there's still some shadowing at another place. So there were still some areas that, I needed to do work on. But at that time, there was no cancer in my lymph nodes anymore. There was no cancer in my lungs anymore. And the 16 of those tumors were just gone. I mean, I remember the oncologist calling me up and I said, "Well, you're addressing these four tumors." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where's the other ones?" And he goes, "They're gone." I walk, okay, just checking, just
Amazing.
making sure. So in January, there was still a couple of light gray areas.
Mm.
If you can pull that one up too.
Yeah. Yeah, so the most
So
recent scan, there's some light gray, but it's mostly all gone.
it's hard to see.
Hard
It
to see.
really
Yeah.
is. It's hard to
Incredible.
see. And that was why it was such a mind blowing experience for the physician's assistant. And
Hmm.
I know I'd started to tell you that I've got a very large team of medical professionals at my fingertips. When you get a stage 4 diagnosis, I think everybody on the planet is assigned to you. And it's all consuming because you're meeting with tons of people all the time. And I had a full palliative care team. So the palliative care team is just there to help you with end of life, get things figured out, what can we do to make you comfortable? And they're, primarily their job is to provide me with painkillers, but I don't do painkillers.
Mm.
So I just
Oh, interesting.
so
And
it's
why no painkillers for you?
they make me really sick, and
Okay.
I've never been able to take them. So it's Tylenol or nothing for me, and it's always been that way. And that's the reason why I knew, like with chemo, was not an option for me. I just have a very sensitive system. Um, so I was aware that there was a lot that I was going to have to focus on, but I also knew that it was very doable. And the doctors were questioning because they didn't quite understand this whole meditation thing, especially the palliative care team. Um, and they came just basically to try to help me get to the other side. And I'm like, well, you're kind of talking to the wrong person here. But whenever I met with the palliative care team, I guess it was just right after we got back from Denver, and it was a new doctor, and they told him to help me in whatever way. And he was trying to push painkillers on me again. And I told him 100 times I don't do painkillers. And I finally just asked him, I said, have you even looked at my PET scan? And he goes, oh, well, no, actually I haven't. And so we're on a Zoom call like this. And there was also a social worker that was present at the time. And the social worker was really enjoying the whole exchange because I believe he believes in this work. And
Mm.
there were several people that in the team that came in and out that were not the medically trained necessarily as much as they were human trained. And I could see him reading my file, and he was just smiling like a Cheshire cat. And and so that doctor pulled up my PET scan, and he was speechless. He couldn't even respond. I mean, he stumbled over his words. and
Mm.
and I'm watching, going from one side to the other, watching the guy that the social worker, and I could tell he's just dying to say something. And so finally he goes, so Patty, I understand you just got back from a meditation retreat. And because he's reading in my notes. And I said, yes, I did. And he said, what, can you tell me about that? And the doctor's eyes are like this big. And I said, well, I went to a 7-day meditation retreat in Denver. And I said, and the whole idea behind it is for us to learn enough about the science of our bodies and the science of our minds, and that we use meditation in order to find ways to heal our body. I said, it's very, very powerful modality. And the guy just, again, he didn't know what to do. So he just stumbled over himself, and he was like, well, I guess whatever you're doing is working. Good job. You know? And then he had somebody call
Amazing.
me the next morning, and I say, fire me, discharge me, discharge me. They're like, she doesn't need us. And I'm like, no, I don't need you, but it took them a while before they got to that place. And, that in itself is rewarding. That
It's
is
incredible. Yeah, it's
wonderful.
opening people's minds to this possibility, I think, is such a gift. And
Hmm.
it's like you're saying, this doctor, he couldn't even conceive of this. And
Well,
now he has to acknowledge that it happened, and he has to open his mind to that possibility.
Well, it's interesting when you work in a system, because this is Kaiser that I'm with, and you can tell that they have specific protocols that they have to follow, and even with the physician assistant, she couldn't tell me that they never see what they saw with my PET scan. She had to goad me into it and say, "Do you have any questions? Is there anything you want to ask? Anything, Patty? Just tell me. Is there anything you want to ask?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd like to know. How often do you see this?"
Mm.
She said, "Never."
Wow.
And I said, "Never?" Well, of course, I'm smiling like this, "Never?"
Right.
And she said, "No, Patty, never." She said, "We stabilize people. That's what we do. she said, because I did go on a medication to stop the growth of the cancer cells. But I guarantee that every time I turned around, they were reminding me that it's not a cure. It's just buying
Mm.
time, right? And she said, we expect to see people stabilize. We don't see this. We don't we don't ever see this. And so I just remembered just bowing to her and saying, I really appreciate you being honest with me
Hmm.
because it's hard for them. And
Mm.
if you got $500,000 of debt in medical student loans, you better stick by what you learned. So, I have to have sympathy for that, and that's okay. That's what they're trained for, and there's a place for all of it. But my
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm imagining. I mean, we understand the power of belief, like Dr. Joe teaches, and other people have taught, and I'm imagining a future where things like this are at least more commonly recognized as occasionally as being possible. And that could shift a lot of people's reality. That could
Mhm.
potentially save a lot of people. I mean, if you can do it, like you're saying, maybe other people can do it. But first they need to believe that that's possible to
Yeah.
even try.
Well, and this is the reason I love Dr. Joe's stories of transformation.
Hmm.
Even through all of these years of, me not being active with him directly, I listened to those stories of transformation for sport because they blew me away. And I was so impressed by people doing the miraculous over and over and over again. And maybe that had something to do with what had happened with my friend 15 years ago. But I just loved the stories. So that was why when I did my meditations, I wanted to see myself giving my story too. I mean, if I was going to go down this road of being diagnosed with stage 4 incurable cancer, then let me tell a story that tells otherwise. And
Hmm.
and it was, really, really rewarding, extremely rewarding.
Love it. Well, we just have a few minutes left, but do you want to share a little bit about the sound healing work you do? I know that was another thing you wanted to share about.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that. I am a sound practitioner. You called it sound healing. I call it sound practitioning. And
Okay.
the reason that I do that again is for the statement that I made earlier. I've got the tools. I have the training. Um, I know how to use my hands. I know how to do the work with that. But again, I'm just providing. I am not the reason that somebody is healing their body.
Hmm.
I am giving them the opportunity to go into a deep theta state where they can tap into source and do whatever it is that their intention is that they had set before they start with the sound session. So we call ourselves practitioners because we don't want to take credit for what happens to other people. Now, we have seen a plethora of amazing things happen with sound work alone. And a lot of people don't realize, I think most people think that, Tibetan bowls or crystal bowls or anything like that is another realm of woo woo, but it really isn't. Tibetan healing has been going on since the 6th century BC. These bowls that are handmade, by the way, are um, incredible pieces of art and functional tools and even dishes that get passed down generation after generation after generation through the Tibetan tradition or in India. Nepal is where all of my bowls and my gong have been made. And these instruments are, like I said, handmade, and they are made by families who have their recipe passed down generation after generation. The village where most of my bowls come from are, well, they don't have running water, they don't have electricity,
Hmm.
they don't have doctors. So
Hmm.
if you have a broken bone, you heal it with a sound bowl.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that this modality works, and this is the reason I'm so madly in love with the stuff that I've done with Dr. Joe's work, and the reason why I believe I even ended up doing this modality was because of the understanding of what frequency does for our body. So everything which you probably learned this again this last April in Denver, but our bodies have frequencies, a different frequency in every single organ. And, you know, a couch has a specific frequency. I mean, everything has its own frequency. And if you have a large collection of tools like what we have, you are able to provide a tremendous amount of tones and vibrations and frequencies that can touch that chaotic place that could be inside of somebody that needs to be put back in order.
Hmm.
So we have witnessed countless numbers of miracles with people who received sound work. So when I was first diagnosed, and I thought, wow, I'm doing sound work, you know, several times a week, sometimes many times a month. You know, I'm providing all of this amazing stuff for clients, and why it doesn't make sense to me. How did I end up with stage 4 cancer? You know, and I thought, well, we're back to the same concept that I said before. You don't heal matter to matter. So if I am the person that is doing the actual work, then I'm in my thinking brain. So I am able to help somebody else create the miraculous, but it isn't necessarily doing the miraculous for me. It can still give me some centering, frequency wise or tone wise, but I could not get to the place of source that I needed to go to while I was providing. But the people that I was working on could. So now you can guess my husband works on me very regularly. So we're back.
Mm,
We're,
good.
we're back to making me a focus as well as not just being somebody that's
Well,
helping
that's a
help
good part of the
others.
story to share too. I think often healers or what you do professionally, you can neglect to do for yourself, you know?
Exactly.
I hear that a lot actually. So yeah.
Happens all the time.
Hmm.
So we learned a little bit of a lesson about that, and you know, so now if you know, I'm feeling uncomfortable or anything comes up, you know, it's very simple. I just go down and sit down and lay down, get in
Well,
front of my gong, whatever it takes, you know. And you can see my instruments are quite large, and
hmm.
you know, they provide a depth of frequency that you don't often find
Mm,
with most singing bowls because most people don't have equipment like we do.
hmm.
We have 5 mother bowls, and mother bowls are created for people to be able to stand in.
Oh
And
well.
that way, the frequency is literally just chasing up your body, and it's, you know, going from your first seal all the way up to your 7th seal and up and out. Uh, and and I know one of those photos is showing somebody laying on their stomach with,
Hmm.
you know, bowls going up their back. And what we do, or how I was trained in the Tibetan tradition, there is a specific note for every one of our energy seals. So, you know, it is the B note, the E note, the A note, the D, and then G, C, and F for your bottom 3 energy
Mm,
centers. So a good practitioner will always have all 7 notes. I have all 7 notes plus everyone in flat, plus everyone in sharp, and then duplicates of many of them. And that allows me to have the full gamut of what is needed to address the full body on the person. So if if somebody is having let's say heartbreak, you know, and they come to us as a client, and we don't ask them what it is that they're looking to heal unless they want to share, but the bowls tell us because
mm,
they don't sound right. So if our D bowl, which is your heart center bowl, if that bowl sounds weird when we're doing the work, then we know that person has a blockage in their heart.
hmm.
And so we are able to take the bowl and work it a little bit harder, or put some extra focus in that area, do some energy work, and to help open up that blocked seal.
Hmm.
So that's one of the gifts of having a large collection, and the larger bowls too, because I can do things that a lot of sound practitioners can't do. And I know there's also the photo of my little pup.
Yeah.
sitting in one of the bowls. And we put the LaCroix can down there because we wanted you to be able to see how big that bowl really is.
Uh-huh.
It's really huge. And, and we have treated many animals. And there are sound practitioners who do
I
not,
love that.
but, work on horses or, cattle or dogs or whatever. So everybody can benefit from frequency work. And with Dr. Joe's meditations, and a lot of people don't know this because they may not have the knowledge of the fact that he is embedding frequency into his meditations, but that's exactly what he's doing. So he's got his guided voice, but in the background, there are specific frequencies that are being distributed through the meditation, which can help you open up the pineal gland or open up your heart. Or so he knows all of that.
Interesting.
I
So
don't believe that
fascinating.
he probably didn't study in the Tibetan tradition like I did, but anybody that does any of this kind of work knows that the two go hand in hand. So
Yeah.
frequency is very, very
Very-
important, and it's very important in his work. So it
mhm.
is the foundation, I think, for my healing. I mean, it.
Yeah.
I surrendered and I allowed, and it happened.
Well, there's definitely the phenomena of resonance where if I play a frequency, a note,
Mm.
and there's I don't know, a glass or I've noticed that with like just different objects around the house, and they'll start to vibrate
Right.
if you're playing that loud, and that kind of illustrates part of the point and part of why that helps because it's happening in the body, like the body's vibrating with that sound.
There's
Mm.
two things that we always do before we start with a new client. One is that we will put water inside one of the bowls and strike it, because instantaneously you will see that the water turns into perfect geometric patterns. So if you're striking that bowl and it's a perfect geometric pattern, and also it spikes in the perfect north, south, east, and west. So, there's some kind of beautiful, all encompassing, we're all one thing going on there, right? But if they can see physically that that bowl is creating that kind of order, and their body is 70% water, then they
Mhm.
know every time we strike one of those bowls, that vibration is going in and it is taking that chaos and putting it back into order. And we will also ask them to look at an example of cymatics. And Dr. Joe did a lot of that when we were in Denver, because cymatics will also show you the impact of what music or sound or tone will do to a fluid, or oil. And
Mhm.
it's your eyes see it. So it's like there's no question whatsoever. If that's happening in there, then it's happening inside of the body.
Mhm.
And disease is nothing more than, your cells being out of order. They they
Mhm.
they they got sick, and so they became a chaotic mess, and we try to find ways to get them back into order.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing this with us all. And it's such an inspiring story. And yeah, all the best on your journey. It's so inspiring.
Thank you very much. Well,
Yeah.
the if you don't mind me saying, they did release my transformation story yesterday on YouTube.
Oh, I watched it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
and
Yeah,
it's
I can link to that in the show notes for people.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
In little over 24 hours, 15,000 people have already looked at it.
Wow.
So I know that I have a purpose, and that purpose is to help people know that we are powerful and we can do whatever it is that we want to do. We just have to believe, and we got to let go of the body, and we got to find source.
Mm, beautiful. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate you.
Thanks.